So thank you very much for giving me the floor. It's a great opportunity for us to be here. It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to speak before Luigi speaks. And I'm very pleased to see that there are many people here, and of course also to see that from ITU and civil society we have speakers. So Sabine, I think, has very clearly set out the circumstances, where we are, what is going on, and where we should go in the future with the World Conference on International Telecommunications. I think it's useful in this context to put us in the overall view and remember what we're doing here and what the ITRs are and why there is a discussion about them. Many of you in this room are probably far too young to remember this, but the introduction of the telephone itself was a major transformation, a major technical transformation. I shouldn't reveal his age, but my husband, for example, lived in a village where there was no telephone, and they still answer the telephone and say, "Where are you?" Why? Because when you called from a telephone, you were from a kiosk in a cafe and calling someone else's home. Now, of course, in the mobile era, this makes a lot of sense. Where are you? But for me, where a telephone was a fixed object from home to home or home to office, I always struck me as a bit peculiar. Now they've come to the modern age. So this ITRs, these ITRs were established also in 1988, a very long time ago, at least for some of us, at a time when most of the telephone operators were state monopolies. It made a lot of sense, of course, to organize and arrange international telephone calls, and the way in which these communications work, primarily through state companies, as I said. Again, international telephone calls were something quite important and quite dramatic in those days. I can remember still how exciting it was to have a telephone call from someone abroad. So things have really transformed themselves very much now. The rates of technological innovation, the way in which communications have changed just in the last 24 years has been really dramatic. And so I think what is the most important aspect for us in the European Commission is to make sure that in amending and adjusting and reviewing these ITRs, it's important to make sure they're modern, it's important to make sure that they last for another 25 years, for example. They did us very well for the last approximately 25 years. And the way in which they did that was being at a relatively high level, not going into any details, not limiting the development of future technologies by being technologically neutral. The internet, of course, didn't really exist, certainly not as it does now when those ITRs were established. And so what we want to see in the European Commission, and I think this is a position that's quite clearly accepted and agreed by the European member states, is that in changing and adjusting and updating these ITRs, we stay again at this high strategic level, technologically neutral, think about what will become in the future, not limit our room and potential for innovation and change, which, as we've seen, has been quite dramatic over the last years. And of course, the most important thing for Europe too is that we have what we call the acquis communautaire. We have a series of regulations, directives, and community laws, if you like, that have been established. And we would not accept anything that imposed on those, transformed them, or limited our ability to adjust them or amend them over the future. So what we would like to see in the ITRs, as I said, is something that can facilitate international telecommunications, update them to the extent possible, see where and how, what adjustments need to be made, and avoid any limitations on our ability to innovate, develop, and think of new and exciting changes, which we've seen, of course, over the last years. Now, in the context of the ITU, it's very nice to have an EU position or to have interests of the EU, and the European Commission has adopted a proposal that it has made to the European Council, which is being discussed now, relating all those basic principles. No limitations on internet access, high-level strategic principles, not getting into the details that would influence the EU acquis. So those are the sort of general principles that are being discussed now in the Council Working Group. But because it's international, it goes beyond borders, it's not limited to the European Union. We have, of course, issues and concerns from many other countries. And I think that what we will have in the future, and when we come to the discussions in Dubai, is a very interesting and challenging time to make sure that the many countries who have particular interests in introducing limitations in the ITRs, or limitations on the way in which the future develops, are not rejected out of hand, of course, but we have to try to negotiate and ensure that we have a clear position, that everyone's position can be taken into consideration. This is, of course, the delight and the joy of international negotiation and discussion. But I wanted to mention also, in the European context, the Dubai conference will also give us a very interesting opportunity to put into place the provisions of the Lisbon Treaty. And I'm not going to go into the details. It's the thing that puts most people asleep. One of the reasons why I'm not speaking last, but I'm not going to go into the details of the Lisbon Treaty. But the important principle is that the European Commission should speak for the European Union at such meetings and in such international fora when there is competence of the European Union in such areas. So this is going to be a very interesting test of this principle. And as I said, this is one of the issues that has been proposed to the Council, and the reason why the European Commission is proposing this position and to speak for the European Union. I don't think I will go into too much more detail, but I think that in this context, at the European Internet Forum, we have a very interesting occasion in which to discuss, to hear your views, to think about what the potential implications are for Internet communications, Internet activities, and to ensure that the many advantages that you have seen from the Internet, its potential for innovation and development and change, can continue. The other thing that is quite interesting and important, of course, too, is that this meeting to discuss the ITRs comes very shortly after the Internet Governance Forum in Baku, where a number of members of European Parliament will participate and be part of the European delegation. Pilar, for example, Sabina, and a number of others. All-female delegation from the European Parliament, by the way, for those of you who take note of these things, which is very good. So I think this will be a useful time, not only for us to show the importance and usefulness of the Internet Governance Forum as a multi-stakeholder forum where we can discuss, where we can ensure that the Internet works and the issues that are of concern to us are addressed, but also because it comes just before the discussion on the ITRs. So I don't want to go into any more detail, except to say that, of course, this is one of many occasions when we are discussing with member states, with civil society, with the European Parliament, with Council, on how to prepare and develop the European position in Dubai. So I look forward to the discussion, and I'm sure it will be very animated. Thank you very much.